another edition of Girard at Large. It's the last weekend before the election host, Rich Girard. Thanks for tuning in. As you know, you can find us online at girardatlarge.com, and you can find us on Facebook and X, formerly known as Twitter, also at Girard at Large, where we encourage you to like us and to follow us. Why? Because who knows, we may pull out some of our old-time election night magic and make sure you know what the results are before you have to read them in the newspaper 3 days from then. All right, we have a big show tonight because not only are we going to continue going ward by ward through the city, race by race, alderman and school board, to share what few thoughts we have left on this race as it comes to a close. We also have a couple guests in studio, and we will be drawing off of their knowledge of the candidates, but we will also be talking to them about their own races, because joining us for a little color commentary and some campaigning of their own are Ward 6 Alderman Crissy Kantor and Ward 12 candidate for school board Camille Craffey. See, I was saying. It's
hard.
No, well, you see, I was saying Craffey before. That was corrected. Now I know then it was Craffey, but I'll get it right. Just like I have to correct.
Spell it however you want on the ballot.
That's right.
But I do have to correct something. Also, when I first mentioned that you were a candidate, I believe I slighted your rank. Somewhere I came across something that said you were a Lance Corporal in the Marine Corps. We're going to call her Sarge from now on because she was, in fact, a superior rank, a sergeant. Now, were you a drill sergeant?
I never fulfilled my dream of becoming a drill instructor because I suffered an injury to my back in preparation to become a drill instructor. So I'm not one to really take no for an answer, but at that point my body told me no, and then the Marine Corps told me no. So
well, one of my very favorite people, maybe you can shed a little light on this, is Master Guns, as we used to call him, who is the one of the ROTC instructors over at West. Ron Schlegel, gunnery sergeant Ron Schlegel. So what is it? What is it to be a master gunnery sergeant? Is that a thing? Do I have it right?
It is. So you will go from either a gunnery sergeant to a master sergeant, or so there's two different avenues. So it's kind of like you're taking the first sergeant route to be the principal, or you're taking the kind of like the subject matter expert route, which is you become the master of your job. So you can either take the more disciplinarian route, or you can become, the master gunnery sergeant, which is you are the specialty.
Yeah,
Yes.
I think it would have
gone
for the master gunnery thing, just because I would want people to call me Master Guns.
It is it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. Plus,
It's cool.
The rank symbol is a little cool.
Oh yeah, he's impressive in uniform. So,
And his wife is amazing too.
Yes, she is. I've had a chance to meet her on a couple of occasions. Well, my son Dominic was, when he was at West, was in ROTC for a bit, and he left it because he had a whole bunch of schedule conflicts with other things. That's kind of the tough thing when you're at a smaller school like that. You have classes you have to take versus classes you want to take, and you don't have that many options. But that's how I get to know Gunny, and yeah, good guy. All right, and I'm drawing Chief. Is it Staub? I think it's Staub over there. Anyway, good men doing good things over at West High School.
We love that.
So now that we've gotten the introductions out of the way and all of the corrections that I needed to make, Craffey.
Excellent.
We're going to do a recap of some thoughts that I shared with folks on wards 1 through 6 for the races on alderman and school board. And then we're going to take on wards 7 through 12 and beyond whatever chiming in they will do as we go through the wards. We will chat with Crissy and Camille.
Yes.
I almost named my oldest daughter Camille.
Really?
Yeah, it came down to the 3 C's. It was Colette, Celeste, and Camille.
Wow.
We went with Colette.
So can I ask where Camille came from?
I'm a French boy, so came from a book of French baby names.
Okay. So
And,
I'm actually
people I
named,
grew up with.
Yeah. So I'm actually named after my great-grandfather, whose name was Camille.
Oh.
So you add the E and it becomes Camille.
Beautiful.
I'm very, very, very French Canadian.
Oui.
My family still lives up in Gorham and Berlin, so.
Tu parles français?
Aïe, un peu.
All right, so Ward 1, we're looking at the race between Chris Morgan and Bryce Kua. I can't say his name. But you ladies may know something about either of these gentlemen, but Chris Morgan is not somebody I know personally, but someone I know of from his long-standing here in the city of Manchester. He's a single dad, son, like I am, of teachers who were very well thought of in the Manchester School District. So, he'll have certain thoughts there about education and what may need to be done or not be done or what's good or not. But his commitment to youth sports in this city, I think, and his being a single parent, a single dad, I think brings a perspective to the Board of Mayor and Aldermen that is much needed. And also being a Manchester guy, the way he is with the family roots that go back as far as they do. Not that I'm knocking necessarily people who aren't from here, but Bryce definitely is not. And I'm not really sure that for as liberal as Ward 1 has become, that Ward 1 is quite as liberal as Bryce would like them to be. He, after all, is pushing to spend $150,000 of your tax dollars so we can stripe the city in bike lanes. And that's just for the master plan, never mind the build-out. And he is, more than on occasion, in a manner that I think is entirely inappropriate for an appointee to the planning board, which is a quasi-judicial body, because I think some of his testimony before the school board and the Board of Aldermen belie a bias that would call into question his judgment as a planning board member and whether or not he's adjudicating those matters on their merits or based on his politics. But certainly his screeds against the Manchester School Board or screeds against policies, or in favor of policies, I should say, that require the school district to withhold information about their children's behavior in school and lie to them when they ask, is not the kind of thing that you want to have elected in the city. And to be perfectly blunt, if you think that that doesn't have an impact on how the city operates, when you see how the aldermen are forcing DIE, diversity, inclusion, and equity, you see the mandates they impose on the training that city employees have to go through, police officers in particular. We run around the city and say, oh, we have 40 hours of training a year for our police officers, which, of course, given how little they actually know in many cases about our city ordinances, has caused yours truly, your ever humble host, to maybe suggest that they be trained in the ordinances. So when, they go visit with people who have taken video and photos of people graffitiing, the Piscataquag River Trail, and they said, well, even if that were against the law, we wouldn't do anything about it because it was public property. True story. By the way, I'm the one who wrote that ordinance back in 1998. When graffiti, was that when you were born?
No, but thank you. This is on TV, right?
Yes.
I just need to keep that portion.
But we were having problems with graffiti, and I was the author of that ordinance, so I knew it wasn't true. But I mean, there are stories like that over and over and over again. But don't you worry, we have an LGBTQ liaison over at the Manchester Police Department, and we have all kinds of sensitivity training so that they can be culturally aware as they're not arresting people who are committing crimes because, and not arresting them because, well, we need to understand their cultural heritage and background and how deprived they've been over time, and we wonder why we have the crime problem in this city. But Kawu will be, full-throated in support of that, and he will push that agenda shamelessly as an alderman the way he has pushed it as a planning board member and an alleged disinterested member of the public. So Chris Morgan gets the nod there.
Can I just add?
Go ahead.
I absolutely 100% believe that parental choice is so important. If I want to teach my child something that has to do with an at-home issue, I think it should be left to the parent. So anybody who's not running on that, put yourself in that parent's shoes.
Yeah, well, I mean, and then again, we have Chris Morgan, parent.
Right.
Bryce Kawu. Like so many liberals who think they know all about children, they themselves are childless. So, but hey, he was once upon a time a kid, so he probably knows all he needs to know.
Although it's not the same anymore, so I don't know.
Yeah, well, You never know. Now, I did some research on Suzanne Potoma, Ward 1. She's running for school board against Julie Turner, and I won't revisit that race because I didn't bring my notes on Suzanne, but if I remember correctly, she's a teacher. She's Hispanic, so all my folks, all my woke friends in Ward 1 who want to help the oppressed, under-resourced, underappreciated folks in the world, she's Hispanic, and that's part, she makes that known in her campaign, but she also has probably one of the most impressive business backgrounds that I have ever seen. And if any organization in the city of Manchester needs someone who has a little business acumen and savvy, a woman who's overseen billion-dollar budgets and understands accounting and financial analysis and whatnot, Ward 1, you could do the city a huge favor by helping an underserved, oppressed minority with an amazing background in both education and business defeat Julie Turner, who is nothing other than a rubber stamp for anything woke or anything the administration wants to do. She is as incurious as anybody that I've ever seen, and it's too bad because having talked to her in the past and worked with her when I was on the school board on occasion, not that we did much, but she's not stupid, but she doesn't, if she has the courage of her convictions, she too thinks that you as parents should be left in the dark and lied to about what your children are doing in school, and in some cases that's the least of her sins. All right, moving on to Ward 2.
Can I say something about Suzanne?
Go right ahead.
So she's classy, smart, and kind, and she's into the arts, and she sews
that's right.
all
She does a lot
the
of stuff in the
costumes.
She had a
for all the-
foundation or something. I think that supports art education. If I
Well, and her
remember
daughter
correctly.
is an art teacher
Okay.
here in the district.
Uh-huh.
And just her accounting background is very impressive. If
Oh, it's
there's-
more than an accounting background.
Right,
Trust me.
right. But if there's anybody who could be a little bit more budget conscious,
Or
that's
just
Suzanne.
business savvy. I mean,
Correct.
Listen, I could
How we spend our money is
as a
important.
former chairman of the
Yes.
finance committee at the school board, I could keep you up at night. Trust me. All right, Ward 2. I did not comment on the school board race because I forgot my notes on Constance Spencer, but have since found them. Of course, Daniel Goonan running for alderman. We recommend Daffy Duck as a write-in. Here's a guy who is the fire chief, decided not to enforce any of the city's codes against these illegally operating sober homes. He's one of the reasons why we have the homeless problem that we do, because by failing to enforce the law, he encouraged and allowed all of these out-of-city, out-of-state operators to open up these illegal facilities, recruit hundreds of people literally to come move to the city, because they admit, by the way, that there isn't enough addiction in Manchester itself to support their operation, which is why, because I talked to some of them because I noticed they were advertising out of state.
wow.
And they said, well, there isn't enough of a market for us to do it. Okay. He lied to a
Wow.
neighborhood meeting. I got it on tape. You can go to GirardAtLarge.com, put in Goonan's name, you'll find it. And he got called out on it by Leon Lafreniere, who was then the planning director, who is about as non-confrontational as anybody you will ever know in your life. And he's just a big phony. He's a liar, and he will put his as the fire chief, right? If in your business, if you were violating fire codes, do you think the fire chief would direct his department to leave you alone because you're providing a necessary service to
No.
Women who can't afford haircuts? No, you'd be raked over the coals as they do with any. And there's no organization in the city more brutal on code enforcement than the fire department. So the fact that he let 60, no fewer than 60 by his own admission, operate in violation of code,
Wow.
never turned them over to the planning department so they could do a zoning review or anything else. Never.
Completely unsafe.
Totally. And that's a problem. So Daffy Duck in Ward 2. About Constance Spencer, the thing that caught my attention about Constance, I'm going to put this in a way that she's just a mom. A mom who, like yours truly, as a father, had kids go to Manchester public schools, public charter schools, private schools, and did homeschooling. Oh, and I did the Catholic school thing too, which I don't think her kids did. And what that means is she understands the difference, I think, between education and schooling. And in a school district that is desperate to try to retain students and attract families to come back, it takes somebody who has experience in all these other realms to be able to advise the board on things that they need to consider if what they really want to do is attract people to the district. And I think she will be valuable in doing that from that perspective. And I think, Sean Parr, college professor, Dr. Parr, and he's another one of these. He's another one of these incurious woke warriors who's all about the politics and not about the results. And we can say that because take a look at the results that the politics have gotten us, and there is no improvement whatsoever in the city of Manchester schools, despite enormous increases in spending.
That's right.
We've gotten nothing for the $100 million worth of COVID aid that we've gotten. Nothing in terms of improved student
Just
performance.
a lot of anxiety.
Absolutely. So Constance Spencer gets the nod.
And I will also say,
And Ward 2.
as a realtor, the biggest complaint that I receive from folks that are looking to purchase in southern New Hampshire is I refuse to move to Manchester. My kids will not go to that school.
Yep.
And heartbreaking for me because I live in Manchester. My son goes to school in Manchester at a public school. But make no mistake, that is the stigma that is out there. And regardless of how much, I try to really root for our schools, I can understand their hesitation.
And we have to come to grips with the fact that we have among the lowest proficiency scores in the state.
Graduation rates are also not great.
Yeah. And, and the people who are graduating shouldn't be graduating in many cases, because if you're graduating seniors, if a third of your graduating senior class is proficient, meaning they're at grade level when they graduate, that means 2 out of every 3 kids graduating from your schools has a diploma that says they can do stuff that they can't do. At least not at the level they should be doing it. Ward 3, Karen Sewell, one of these white liberals who's actually a racist. She ran against Mary Georges to bring diversity to the Manchester School Board, because Mary Georges, she was the wrong kind of diversity. Yes, she's black. Yes, she's an African immigrant. Yes, she speaks with an accent and all that fun stuff. But she refused to do what the white liberals told her to do on a variety of issues when she was a school board member. So they ran Karen Sewell against her, who has proven herself to be another one of these, woke warrior leftists that are just, yep, on that agenda. But Pat Long and Scott Elliott do either. I don't know Scott Elliott. I haven't really been able to find anything on Scott Elliott. Do you know anything about Scott Elliott?
We run with Scott Elliott. He's a really nice guy. He, Nori knows the most about Scott.
Yes. But as we were just discussing, the opponent, right? The incumbent.
Yeah. Pat.
What what do you have to lose except for could it get any more woke?
Yeah, well, I'll say this.
Well,
I will say
not
this about
woke.
Pat.
That's
He's
exactly.
He's definitely not
I don't
woke.
believe Pat is woke.
No.
I mean,
Yeah.
Pat is a Democrat, and he is a liberal Democrat. But there are, he doesn't agree with what the city's doing on homelessness. He doesn't agree with bail reform. Pat has the gumption, I'd say something else, but I'm in the presence of ladies, to, and all of you out there in TV who expect so much better than that from me. But when he doesn't care what his party's position is if he disagrees with it. And I've always gotten along with Pat. We've very often disagreed, but we've always been able to dialogue. And so,
I think it's important. Somebody who believes in what's right is right and what's wrong is wrong.
Yes.
Their moral compass is very important. That's what's going to guide them when they're serving our community.
Yeah. So, Ward 4, Mark Flanders, who's tilted at the Leslie Want windmill for school board in the past, is running against Christine Fajardo for alderman. Mark is another one of these, scary, smart business guys. His background in business administration, but more importantly, insurance. And people don't think of insurance often when it comes to city. I can tell you it's a big deal. But his abilities there would be a terrific addition to the Board of Mayor and Aldermen, because he will know things and he will see things and he will be able to, advocate for things that anybody who puts together a budget or anybody who understands the operation of any kind of business will be there. And Fajardo seems nice enough, but, she doesn't really, in my opinion, watching her, seem to grasp many of the issues that come before the city.
Oh.
And I think she probably also is just one of these, whatever Joyce wants, Joyce gets, and that's the deal.
That's your number one indicator
So-
that that's not a good person to vote for. Can I just say that?
And then
My thing is Mark Flanders, stand-up
him.
guy. He's so great. And
yeah,
he's not woke, and
very
he's going to
honest.
stand
He's
up
very-
and do what's right.
Yeah, he's very
Great
level-headed.
values.
I think he's probably more center right-leaning or conservative, but I think he's probably more of a so-called problem solver. And I consider
that's the
myself to
thing.
be a problem solver, but I think he's more agnostic on a lot of the political
Rule has
issues.
prevail. That's for sure
Yeah,
his role.
Yeah, I think he's more agnostic on a lot of the political issues, and I think he's just all about the nuts and bolts and making it work better. And so I think that would be a great addition to the board. Moving on to Ward 5, we've got an interesting battle for alderman between Kathleen Paquette, the newcomer who defeated one of these illegally operating sober homes on Grand Avenue. That's how I met her. She reached out to me. Her neighborhood reached out to me and some of my neighbors because we had been fighting the illegal sober homes on our block. And she is an unbelievable researcher. She has got more energy than almost anybody that I know. She will work harder than almost anybody that I can think of, and she actually gives a damn about her neighborhoods.
Yes.
She'll return the phone calls. She'll go visit the people, and see the things that they want to see, and she will also, be their voice on the board of mayor and aldermen. And she's got this innate sense about who's full of it and who isn't, and that girl will stand her ground.
Oh yes, definitely.
Without and I look, I like Tony Sapienza, I really do, but Tony seems to be, in my opinion, taking the office for granted, and every now and then I get whiplash. Tony will say something, and I'll be like, yeah, and then he'll vote, and it'll be the exact opposite of what he just said, and to me, it's kind of like he's trying to have his cake and eat it too. I don't know, and he's changed over his time in office, and and she led the primary, and by
Her spirit is just
Yeah.
contagious. I mean, honest to goodness,
Yeah.
she does so much for her community without, she's not blasting it out on social media. She's, she does all sorts of quiet, charitable things, and I love that about her.
And
So-
she knows a lot about bail reform, because when I went up to testify, she was a little busy, but she's already been fighting that fight.
yes,
And even though I can't do it, as an alderman, going up and testifying
absolutely.
really makes a difference.
Yeah,
So
and-
she
and-
really is deep-rooted and cares, like you said.
And Ward 5, being the ground zero of some of our toughest neighborhoods when it comes to crime, they need an advocate that will go and do that.
And Christine and Tony did vote for the engagement center.
Yeah.
And I did not vote for the engagement center.
Right.
It didn't create more beds.
That
I'm like,
would-
where
that
did the
would be-
$1.4 million go?
For those of you wondering what the engagement center is, that is the homeless services shelter that the city spent $1.4 or so million of your hard-earned tax dollars on. That's the place that I like to tell you really promoted the need for all-day coffee as a solution to the homeless problem. All right, moving on to Ward 5, School Board, Scott Mattiello versus Jason Bonilla. I don't have my notes, but I remember talking about Mattiello last time. He gets the nod. Look, Jason Bonilla doesn't have the basic respect for the office to do anything more than wear a baseball cap and a T-shirt to meetings and act like he's some kind of, down with it. And frankly, I think the guy is a racist. I get that he's a first generation Salvadoran American, but his push on trying to change the no grade policy, because the kids who are being hurt most are the ones that are like him. So
That look like him.
Look like him. And so
Yes.
what he's saying to me is, if you're Hispanic, you somehow
Don't have a chance?
well, no. If
That
you're
seems a little
Hispanic,
bit-
no, it's not that you don't have a chance. It's just that if you're Hispanic, you shouldn't be expected to attend school. And that's because the whole no grade policy is in a district that's saying we need to improve our attendance. They just removed one of the encouragements for people to actually attend school.
Right, and why should it matter what you look like if you get a free pass on the attendance policy?
And we
It
shouldn't
should
be
all
judging-
there
right.
to learn
Right.
equally. I mean,
Yeah.
when I was going to school, it was, you're an American, you can be whatever you want to be, but you have to work hard and then you can get it.
Yeah,
Right.
and we shouldn't be judging each other by the color of our skin, period.
Never.
No, but here's the flip side of it. Somehow he says that the policy It's almost like the policy was intentional. This is part of the
Yeah.
this is part of the woke warrior thing. This is evidence of systemic racism when you have a policy like let's say leveling, which he opposes, that's been around for decades, long before Manchester had any kind of minority population. The same system that has been around for 100 years is now racist. For what reason? Okay, so he buys into that whole, oppressor versus oppressed
When
thing.
it fits his agenda.
Exactly.
Only.
And it's all about, so he can be a hero.
He also likes to say, that's dope. It's really dope that you guys invited me here to the students that he was conversing with.
Well, and
I just don't know that that's professional.
Listen, you can relate, but you should, in my opinion, you should set yourself up as a role model. This guy hasn't been elected, by the way. He was appointed
He was
because
selected.
Jeremy
Got
Dobson lied to people, moved out of town before the election, didn't tell anybody, stayed on the ballot. You'll never guess who caught him. Okay, blew the whole thing up, only for him to resign and have this Bonilla guy, appointed. I just maybe Ward 5 has gone down that road, but I don't think it's terribly respectful to treat the office like you're the. I hate to say it, the chief ghetto officer, and just acting like you're all. I don't get it.
I think as an elected official, you have an obligation to present yourself in a certain way and
that's just your whiteness talking. Listen, you don't have to be there you don't have to be there in a jacket and a tie, but pull up your pants, wear something other than a t-shirt, maybe put a button down on top of it, a polo shirt or something.
My thing is the hat.
And ditch the ball cap.
My thing is the hat, and that's the military in me, but when you enter a building, your hat comes off.
Well, generally speaking, it's a sign of respect, whether you're in a church, at a meeting, at a dinner table or whatnot, hats
Amen.
come off. All right, so we're going to skip over Ward 6 for a moment. And we're going to go to Ward 7. So now we're getting into the races we didn't talk about last time. We got Terrio versus the not Ward 3 Alderman, Patrick Long. I think we're going to give this one to Terrio because of his name recognition on the ballot. I sat next to Ross on the school board for the 2 terms that I was there. We worked together on the teacher negotiations committee that I had the dubious distinction of chairing. That thing took over my life. But Terrio, look, Terrio's a Republican, but, there's, take it from a conservative. There's no way that anyone is going to be able to paint Ross Terrio as one of these right-wing extremists unless they're making stuff up. Again, he's more or less, one of his big issues is the tax cap. He cares very much about the tax cap. He's a working class guy but he's wicked smart.
He's a veteran.
Yeah.
He's a Marine. He's a Marine veteran. He's
Fellow
a pharmacist. He's a lawyer.
Very smart.
Wicked smart.
Oh, he is.
And a really nice guy.
Sometimes a little too smart for his own. What we call on my side of town is too smart by half. And he sometimes gets himself into trouble when he gets there. But generally speaking, a solid guy, always a strong advocate for what was happening within Ward 7. And I think it would be a good thing for Ross to return. He lost in about 8 votes to... I
think it was 6.
Yeah, 6 or 8
like
votes to Mary
Yes.
Heath in Ward 7. I encouraged him to do the recount. He did. The Democrats threw everything, including the kitchen sink, at him to win that seat. So, but he should be back. Now, the more interesting race there to me is Christopher Potter, who... look, I am a practicing Catholic, which means, by the way, that I'm flawed and I'm broken. I screw up all the time. It's just that I at least try to adhere to
as we all are as humans.
a certain moral
Perfectly
code.
imperfect.
And, for those of you who are familiar with the Catholic faith, I am so good at it. I go to confession once every 2 weeks. I'd hate to see how long I'd be there if I went, any at any greater distance than that. So it really annoys me when Christopher Potter takes his really warped interpretation of Christianity, and he's an Episcopalian. It's
warped.
And that's fine. But when woke politics starts to tell you that the Bible is somehow bigoted, hateful, oppressive, and anybody who is an advocate, as many who have come before the school board have been, for the idea that, he made them, and this is a scientific thing too, male and female. he is a loud proponent of this, anti-parent, supposedly trans protective policy that requires schools to not only not divulge what their children are doing in school,
Unacceptable.
but lie to parents when they ask. And he has sat there and accused, fellow Christians of being hate-filled, bigoted, encouraged people to leave their churches and come to one like his.
Were his words, not all Christians are bigots?
Yes.
I think that's just a hateful statement.
And the way he sits there in response to public comment and just chastises the public that has come to share its opinion and degrades
And has every right
them,
to.
and degrades them, is I've never seen anything like that. Brian Cole, good guy, worked hard, just got elected to state rep.
He's working hard.
And, also a business owner. He has a very big business here in the city of Manchester. He's very good at what he does. It wouldn't hurt the Manchester School Board to have more people like Brian Cole and just drew a blank on her name, Suzanne Potoma. In Ward 1, where they understand business, they understand organizational leadership, they understand organizational operations,
Fiscal
management,
responsibility.
fiscal respect. Those two could revolutionize the board. And Cole has worked really, really hard. He really cares about local politics, and so Brian Cole gets the nod there.
And very level-headed. He's very level-headed,
Oh, God, yeah.
and he's very diplomatic whenever he's looking
Is he
at
not a
any
veteran too?
He's not. He does look like one, though.
Yeah, I thought he
has
was.
a kind of a cartoonish, facade.
I wouldn't want to get into a fight with that guy. He's
Just be on his side.
he's jacked, as they say, right? So Ward 8 Alderman, we have Edward J. Sapienza, the third of the Sapienza brothers here in the Queen City. I actually saw their brother Phil when I was trick-or-treating with my son over a couple days ago. And I had their dad. Well, I didn't have their dad, but I knew their dad because when I was at the Gosler School Annex, the former St. Patrick's School for sixth grade, Mr. Sapienza was one of the sixth grade teachers, along with Mr. Thissell, Mr. Sherwin, and Mr. Hart. There you go. So they had 4 sixth grade teachers, all men. Isn't that weird?
Wow.
Yeah. Anyway,
Sixth grade is a rough time.
and they were
I know.
they were great piece. So Eddie's unopposed, and he should beat no Daffy Duck in Ward 8.
Eddie all the way.
Eddie all the way. Ward 8 School Board is Mark Warden, the former Republican state rep, a conservative who I would love to see on the school board because he will have the gumption to ask the kinds of questions that I asked as a school board member, and he won't care about asking the questions. And what I mean by that is he won't care about the flack he's going to get. He brings a perspective that school board needs. What I know of this Jessica Spillers person is she would fit right in with the woke warriors that already populate the board. I don't know
Painful.
that. That's my information. But I know Mark Warden. I've known him for years. He's more libertarian leaning in his politics and his views. He was a frequent guest on my radio show. He and I have not always agreed, but we have had some of the best discussions over, policy, politics, the right and proper role of government, et cetera, et cetera. Mm-hmm. Look for Warden, I think, to push a school choice agenda, which I think, and when I ran for mayor, I think this school choice really is the only thing that can turn the Manchester School District around. Why? Because it's a fundamentally different system, and our system is so far gone right now that I don't believe that there's any tinkering, any testing, any curriculum. I don't believe there's anything that can be done in the current system that will fundamentally improve it. And taking a look at all of the money that's been spent, taking a look at how Manchester Proud has taken it down this left-wing rat hole, I think
just get back to the basics. Stop with just
Yes.
trying to flood the money because the money's not making a difference.
And I think Warden.
That's right.
I think Warden will do that. All right. So now we're going to get to Ward 9. Now, my friends in Ward 9, who I know care deeply about elevating people of color, people who are historically under-resourced, underrepresented, you have an opportunity to send white privilege packing in a big way in Ward 9 by voting for Jose Mart against white privileged James Burkish. That's right. Now, let me give you a little bit about Jose Mart, because we all know Jim Burkish, former fire chief, probably got his job on the fire department because his uncle was an alderman. Privilege, right? Privilege. Makes a lot of money.
I know nothing about privilege.
Makes a lot of money. Makes a lot of money. All of it from the taxpayers because he was and look, but definitely a white guy. I mean, Jose Mart, to look at him is to see a black man. To listen to him is to hear an Hispanic person. Okay. And there was a great injustice, and he lives at the Elmwood Gardens housing project, which means he also comes from a socioeconomic demographic that is underprivileged. So Manchester, if what you want is to take somebody who is underprivileged and part of an historically oppressed group by this, white oppressive class that we have here in America, and according to former mayoral candidate Will Stewart, is very much alive here in the city of Manchester. You, especially the Democrats who care so much about this down in Ward 9, could vote for Jose Mart. And, Jose Mart is also crusading for his fellow disadvantaged citizens because the Manchester Police Department, along with Alderman Burkish, deprived the people of Elmwood Gardens of their exterior storage sheds as a way of reducing crime. And it's causing hardships there for people who don't have money for storage and don't really have storage inside of their units. So to my liberal friends who believe that white privilege needs to be defeated, who believe that the oppressed must be elevated and that the underprivileged must be put on equal footing and given equal voice with the rest of the racist white supremacists that exist here in the city, I recommend to you the candidacy of Jose Mart, and I'm sure Jim Burkish, believing also in all of this white privilege stuff, will happily, gladly concede the race or accept defeat and go on to the sunset, knowing that he has given a disadvantaged, underserved, and underprivileged member of our community the opportunity to show us what he's got. So in Ward 9, Jose Mart for alderman, and Bob Baines, former mayor, running for a school board seat that he held back in the 60s, Daffy Duck. And I'll tell you why, seriously. Bob Baines thinks that what he did as mayor in passing that $106 million boondoggle that expanded our high schools to their current size in the face of, back then, demographic projections that were showing them going this way.
Yes, sir.
And did a slap-happy job, terrible job. And I know I was on the Buildings and Sites Committee for 4 years, so I know how bad a lot of that construction was because we're still fixing for the stuff, still fixing a lot that was broken. Okay, a lot that just it was poorly done and is difficult to maintain, while we're still paying $7.5 million a year in debt service for those renovations that he did back in the early 2000s.
But let's tack on another $306 million.
Just to start.
He's
Phase one.
And he's in favor of that, and he's a big booster of this Manchester Proud thing that has caused the schools to take this huge left-hand turn. But he said and he's angry that the schools haven't done anything since he had that boondoggle back then. So he's all for spending $300 million literally to expand 4 middle schools that already have surplus capacity according to recently done studies by the school board. So why are we adding seats to schools that already have excess seats?
And there's a continued decline. And my huge question is who is in charge of the upkeep and the maintenance to these buildings? Who's in charge of the deferred maintenance that never got finished, right? Where are they going to be held accountable?
But I'm telling you, it's kind of a lie that they didn't. Look, people paint this. I can tell you, 4 years on the school board, 4 years specifically on that committee, and on finance that dealt with all of these business issues. the schools are not the disaster that they're being made out to be. If you take a
they're
look at
76 years old.
well, there are mill
Didn't
buildings
you know?
that are
That's horrible.
yeah, but there are mill buildings that are 150 years old.
Thank you.
And
There are people on that school board that are 76 years old.
Well, maybe
and
we
they're
should
still good to go, right?
Well, maybe we should toss them out in favor of younger, better models that can better cope with the modern day issues.
I mean, if that's the way they want to do it.
Ward 10, James Mara versus Bill Berry for alderman. Now, I know a little bit about James Mara. I've gone to his website. He's actually very articulate. He's very insightful. He, like me, is a proud Blue Knight. And listen, I've known Bill Berry for years, and generally speaking, I get along with him. He and I have very different politics. And I think he started to see, and I don't know if it's an election year conversion, I don't think it is, but he started to see the error of the city's ways when it comes to this homelessness thing. However, I really do think it's time for a change over there in Ward 10, because the longer you sit in office, and Bill's been there for a few terms now, the longer you sit in office, the more you get comfortable, the less contact you have with people. You start to pay attention to certain people,
Yes.
you start to tune others out. And when I campaigned 2 years ago, and also for the state senate, I did a lot of neighborhoods in Ward 10. And it was evident to me as I was going through Ward 10 that there were seeds of discontent there. Maybe you can fill in some blanks on Mara. I don't really know him that well, but I've seen enough of what I could find on his website, online, and whatnot to know that I would be entirely comfortable with him as an alderman. I think he'd bring a fresh perspective, and I think he'd be a little...
and he's a teacher.
Yeah.
But not in Manchester.
Not
No,
in Manchester.
but
Music teacher, right?
he's a music teacher.
Right,
Yes.
just like Bob Bain. So maybe we have former music teacher in Ward 9, music teacher in Ward 10. They'll make
He's an
beautiful
All-American.
music. Yeah.
He is an All-American.
And everything that
parental
I know
rights.
about him, exactly. He's a great dad. He and his wife just do such an awesome
Amazing.
job with their kids, and
many
their
kids?
children are two.
Okay.
They are they're their priority.
There
You know,
go.
regardless of their age, and that's really the last time I spoke to Jim. That was what he said to me. You know, my children are my pride and joy.
Gotcha.
I'm
Yeah.
so proud of them.
So I would give the nod to Mara over Berry in Ward 10. Tough uphill climb, but if he's out there doing the work, knocking on the
he
doors,
is. Yes.
that'll and he grew up in the neighborhood, so he's going to be known. That could be a sleeper. That could be one to watch on election night. We have Gary Hamer and Joy Senecal for school board. I will say on occasion, and I have zero. I mean, I don't like Gary Hamer. At his core, I think he's a nasty, mean person. On occasion,
Ditto.
he asks questions, and his wife is even worse. She is horrific. Some of the stuff that she says to
Amen.
people.
Oh, I've been
she's
one
one
of
of
those
these.
people.
She's one of these, social media keyboard warriors.
She's come for me before.
Despicable.
But
Me too.
there are times though where he has asked some decent questions, because he's got an okay professional background. But doesn't matter what questions he asks or what point he's trying, he always falls in line with the Joyce Craig dictates on what happens. And he's another one that okay, great question, but why are you following through on the other side of it? Joyce Senecal,
Spitfire.
well, I've met her, and that's a pretty good
She's
Smart.
impressive.
She's caring.
small
Yes.
business owner.
Small business owner.
Bodybuilder too, yes.
Yes, bodybuilder.
Now, that takes a little discipline.
Yes.
All about doing what's right.
So tell us what she brings to the
Open-minded.
table.
Her heart, her small business skills. You know what?
What's her business?
She's a hairstylist, and she has a, oh my gosh, what do you call it?
She's an entrepreneur in Massachusetts with another small business.
And she has a phys ed, oh my God,
Physical
bodybuilding.
trainer.
Physical
Yes.
trainer.
Oh, she's a
Yes.
okay.
Yes. But what I will say
Personal
that
trainer.
Personal
yes,
trainer.
that I love most about Joy is that she is not a person to be bullied. She will not back down. She is a fact checker through and through.
Big time.
And she and I will go back and forth in text, just, I found this out. I found this out. I found it. And she's just, she does a deep dive no matter what school board involves, and to include neighboring school boards.
So she'll
She's
do
a
her
problem-
own homework, is what you said.
Yeah, she's a
Yes,
problem
sir.
solver. She's not a rubber stamper.
No.
That'll make
At
her a pain
all.
in the ass. Because, one of the things, I had people after I left the school board say to me, we wish you were back. And it surprised me because these were people who were not necessarily fans of mine. And I would look at them and go, really? And they're like, yeah, why? At least you read your agenda packet, and even if we didn't agree, you had reasonable questions and you could discuss it because
You're
did your
informed.
homework.
Yes.
So if that's what you're telling us about
She is
Joy
completely
Senecal,
dedicated.
good. All right. Well,
Sharp.
And she loves the
Very
city
sharp.
and loves
Yes.
the kids.
Joy Senecal in Ward 10.
Her
Ward
daughter
11.
actually also went to school here in Manchester, and so
Okay.
she's
And graduated.
She's graduated. However, she's very familiar with the school system.
There you go. All right. So Joy Senecal in Ward 10. Ward 11, Norm Vincent versus Dr. Nicole Leapley. And if you don't call her doctor, she will get annoyed.
Oy.
And just a reminder to
won't.
those of you out there, her doctorate is in French literature, which may have been useful in this city 30 years ago or longer, but not
Je ne
really.
sais
But
pas.
she is, again, one of these dogmatic political warriors who doesn't look at the issue, who doesn't look at the results, who won't admit what's wrong and make any changes. It's spend more money, we need more resources. It's the same old, same old. And if she gets onto the board of mayor and alderman, you can kiss any tax cap vote out of Ward 11 goodbye. And that's a big deal in Ward 11 because Ward 11 may be Democratic, although it's more, it's trending more Republican, but it has always been a solidly fiscally conservative ward. And she is a spendthrift, and she is an excuse maker, and she doesn't hold people to account except to say, well, they need more money.
I will
And she's the
say-
kind of person who'll say, oh, we did that. She doesn't read her materials.
No.
Like when I caught Sue, the union president there, Sue Hannon, thank you, getting a sweetheart deal because I read the contract. And they were like, "What? We did?" I'm like, "Well, if you'd read your contract before you voted for it, you would have known."
My biggest gripe with her, I think, is just I witnessed her on the school board, and it just seems as though she speaks down towards
But
others.
she's very condescending. Well, she's a
And-
doctor, don't you know?
Right, and it starts with the correction of it's doctor, and then it'll continue with well, and it just seems like it's not productive.
She's very self-impressed. Norm Vincent. Don't really know anything about Norm. I know he's a Ward 11 guy. I know he's a Manchester guy. What do you know about Norm?
Norm is out there knocking doors like I have never
veteran?
seen. Yes. Yes.
I did.
also
I
veteran.
did. I have met him once, and I can tell he's knocking doors because I see his signs up all over Ward
Everywhere.
11.
Yes.
So,
yes. Well loved.
He cares. He wants to make a difference. He wants to make an impact.
He's retired.
Dedicated.
Yes? Is he retired, or is he still working?
I believe he's still working.
Okay.
But you'd never know it because he and the next individual,
And his
Gordon,
son was campaigning with him
right,
too.
are
Yeah.
out there door knocking together as a pair.
Yeah. Now,
So frequently, and it's
and I met
adorable.
Gordon once, an impressive guy,
Very.
who is a young guy, got a young family.
cutest baby. So cute.
Wants to shape up
cute.
the schools before his kid goes there. And then we have Liz O'Neill. And of course, Hayner had the gumption to go to the school board and say, you had a school student group sponsor a debate that
At a
supposedly at a school that supposedly invited all of the candidates. Where Christopher Potter then stood up and said, "Well, the ones who aren't here don't
Don't care
support
about you."
When people like Gordon and several others were never invited.
I will say
And
I was also one of those folks that was not invited. And similar to myself, I'm a single mom, but Gordon's wife is actually an ER nurse or doctor. I cannot remember, and I apologize. But there are many days where she's working 24-hour shifts. So he essentially is a single parent during those days. So for him to find childcare in less than 24 hours for his toddler,
Right. Yeah, because
very similar to me, I could not
Yeah,
find
'cause
childcare
he-
for my 5-year-old.
Because he, like you, found out about this thing in a story that the Manchester Inkling did, if I'm not mistaken.
Correct. Yes.
Yes.
I did not receive. Or rather, a lot of us did not receive the invitation. It was
Including,
just on
I'm
social
told,
media.
Jim O'Connell, who,
Correct.
how's that? Hey, Jim, just let that be a lesson. For as woke as you are, you will never be... You will never be one of them, and yes, they will cut you out. And don't for a minute think that wasn't intentional.
I think that's a compliment on Jim. that he wasn't invited, right? Like
Well,
they
it's
might
certainly-
be a little bit worried that Jim's, actually he's going to listen to what
Well,
everybody has to say.
all I remember is Mr. We have a systemically racist school district, and Mr. Woke Warrior on diversity. When he appointed the superintendent search committee, it was yours truly who pointed out that he could have appointed Carlos Gonzalez or he could have appointed Jason Bonilla, but instead he picked 5 white liberals like himself, all old, to pick the next superintendent. And after I, crushed him for that, before he came on the show, he called Julie Turner from Ward 1, who stepped down so he could appoint Bonilla. So there you go. And Jim, they didn't forget that slight, no matter how quickly you corrected it. All right, so now we've got Ward 12 and Ward 6. Again, we're here with Camille Craffey, who's running for school board in Craffey.
Craffey.
Did I say it right the first time?
Craffey. Yes.
Camille Craffey, who's running for school board in Ward 12, and of course Crissy Kantor, known and loved by all in the city of Manchester, running for re-election alderman in Ward 6. So I'm going to throw it out there. First, I want to talk about the alderman's race in Ward 12, then the school board race in Ward 6, and we'll wrap up with you two ladies. Kelly Thomas, I supported her when she ran for school board. When Joyce Craig refused to, and she was having her health issues, refused to let her attend meetings electronically. She initially asked me not to say or do anything about it, but eventually during that re-election campaign, I did, because I thought what Joyce did was awful, especially since the Democrats were coming after her for not attending meetings, which she tried to do. Kelly, I think she was 15 when she was in a terrible car accident. She lost the use of her legs. She was a star athlete at the time, but a tremendous life story. She
beautiful family.
Oh, yes.
Oh, my gosh.
And she, her kids went to school with my kids for a little while when they were at the same school. But she's a social worker. She understands addiction. She understands the whole issue, and I think she understands it, in my opinion, the right way. And she will be a tremendous voice for Ward 12, where Aaron George Kelly is a tremendous voice for a liberal agenda that really doesn't reflect what I understand about Ward 12. And then Ward 6 school board race, you could have Dan, I'll do it because the union told me to and I want my health insurance Bergeron, or Ken Tassi, who is the one vote and the one voice on the school board that dares to even question some of this left-wing lunacy that has totally politicized our schools. Ken has worked very, very hard. It deserves re-election.
And the only Republican, as far as I'm concerned,
well,
that's on that board.
Carlos in name is a Republican, so we'll go there. And listen, I want to say this about Carlos. I have known Carlos since we ran together in the late 90s for alderman at large. I think he's a good guy. I think he means very well, and I don't have any issues with him as a person. However, in looking at this race and taking a look at what I believe is in the best interest of the city, he has a job that directly interferes with his ability to be a school board member. He's often absent. It's not a Kelly Thomas kind of thing where it's your health or it's your mobility. He just can't be there. He also, has recently remarried, has a young daughter, I think it is. And so that, and frankly, I've been disappointed by his voting record, because where I thought he would bring some common sense, he's just decided not to rock the boat. And I think it's because of his ethnic background. He doesn't want to be seen as a traitor to all of this woke stuff that allegedly is elevating, oppressed, historically oppressed, disadvantaged, under-resourced, name it,
I don't think your race, religion, gender, any of that should dictate what it is that you're capable of doing and standing up for. You're an elected official for your community. You're to be the voice in the vessel.
Yeah.
And if you're coming late and you're leaving early, or you're not coming at all, we've forfeited our vote in Ward 12 for 2 years.
And again, he just hasn't been where I thought he would be on some of these issues, and I can't continue to support that. While I love him dearly as a person,
you can think
and we'll
someone's
always
a great
consider
person.
him a friend. I just think he's. So tell us, you got a couple minutes here before we got to wrap it up with Crissy, but what will you do as school board member in Ward 12? Camille Craffey.
Camille Craffey. Number one, I will attend all meetings.
Be careful, that could be tricky.
The one thing that I would like to do is definitely look into an attendance policy for board members, so that we are certain that when we elect someone, they are committed to that position. I am a single mom. I'm a veteran. My son goes to Northwest. He's in kindergarten. And so for me as a mother, it's really important to know, what is it that my son is learning? What is it he's being taught? And as far as who's telling him not to tell me things, that's a huge red flag. You know, when I was growing up, it was always anybody who tells you not to tell your parents is the bad guy, right?
That's right.
So how confusing for a young kindergartner, or, you know, whatever age, right? Don't tell your parents, but this is a teacher you're supposed to trust. So I think, for me, I think we just really need to, I guess, highlight those issues and get back to parental rights. That's a huge deal for me. If it's an at-home issue, let the parents be parents. And likewise, I think as parents, we need to kind of gather ourselves now that COVID is no longer an excuse. Be involved. Get out there. The more you are involved in your child's education, you know, the studies have proven your children will do better. They will be more literate. And that's what we need to get down to is literacy and improving in Manchester School District, because we're definitely lacking. And
I'm assuming, being a former Marine or retired Marine, right?
Retired, yes.
Yeah, so I was once told former means you were dishonorably discharged.
Correct.
So
yes.
Once Marine, always Marine, unless you've been tossed out. I'm sure you'll stand your ground and you won't take any guff from anybody, yes?
Correct.
And that's what
yes.
we want.
If you'd like any references,
unless
you can call all my former
That'll
Marines.
be fine, unless you disagree with me. And that... And then we come to Crissy, Kantor, incumbent alderman, who just won a resounding victory in a special election back in May. So you decided to run again. So you've got the last couple minutes of the show, Crissy.
So to me,
What surprised you?
What surprised me? Oh goodness, I
How
think
nasty people are trying to take you out.
Yes, that was very, very surprising. The twisting of truth. And just some unkind people. But I mean, to me, I'm like, the truth will always prevail, and standing strong in our values, and not being afraid. And don't, to me, it's like people have been trying to take me out, however they want to be able to take me out. And I'm like, no, you're not going to rattle me and you're not going to shake me, because I'm going to be standing up and doing what's right for my constituents, myself, and all of Manchester, because we have to take back our city and we have to do what is right for all of us.
So
to me,
you've got your feet wet now for the last several months. What one or two issues are you going to go after once you're reelected?
So to me, really, law and order, homelessness is a big problem, but with that becomes the mental health, the drug addiction, and how can we truly help people and not enable them. So to me, all of that is really, that's really where my heart is. Of course, my constituents, and answering their calls, and safety for all.
There you go.
Safety and kindness.
Crissy, Kantor, Camille Craffey, thank you for joining us on Girard at Large. You folks now have been asking. You have my rundown ward by ward on the races. We hope it helps. The election is Tuesday. Polls are open from 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. here in the, 7 p.m., 6 a.m. to 7 p.m. here in the Queen City. Get out and vote. If you don't, you get no one to blame for the direction the city's going in but yourself. Until next week, be good, be well, don't do anything we wouldn't do. Proud to have you in the audience. Thanks so much for being there. Good night.